Hi, guys, and welcome back to a new episode. Episode I don't remember, but it's part 3 of the entrance we're building here. And the entrance is a 5-room dungeon, which is again entrance to our mega dungeon. And eventually we will get some mechanics out of this, which will eventually be a role-playing game. So, last time in part 2, we made this entrance overview where we tried to figure out where the different rooms in this 5-room dungeon would be. I was supposed to do room 2, and hopefully I will do room 2 today, but I can't guarantee anything. Now, what we've already done is create room 1, the gatehouse, which is here. That is where the players will first interact with the dungeon itself, where they will walk over to this entrance, find and try to open up this portcullis, which is simple enough. Now, since part 2, I've been sort of struggling for the last week when I've been trying to figure out how to solve this. The problem I've been having is I want this to be a realistic dungeon. I don't want it to be a weird fantasy dungeon with just rooms and corridors and these things. So I wanted to be specifically built like a castle. And a castle design, a typical castle design, is like this. This is the entrance of a typical castle. The problem is that it's boring. It's really, really boring. You see, the problem here is when you enter the first room and you try to solve this gatehouse, it's very simple. It's a closed portcullis. The players have to walk around it and then open it from the top. Then after walking for a bit, they'll meet a bigger door, which is also locked, and they just have to walk on top of it and open it. So it's the exact same obstacle, it's just bigger. And that is, again, boring. So I was thinking, what can I do to create an interesting design, an interesting flavor to this game? And I'll spare you the details on how I came up with whatever I came up with, but my idea for this castle is dimensions. I'm thinking that I want this castle to be specifically placed in this location because that specific location has 2 dimensions. So you have the real world, which is what we are used to, and you have, currently I'm calling it Twilight, but that really seems like a mirror dimension or something similar to Twilight Princess in Zelda, which is definitely not what I'm working for. This is actually more just a pocket dimension. I'm just not ready to call it anything yet. So the idea is that the players or the castle itself has these different rooms that you can interact with, so that you can have a key to a door in this castle and you can open it up and walk into the room on the other side. But you could also use a different key, a different magical key, and open up and get to a second room in the same space, but it's in the twilight. And I want the inhabitants who built this castle to utilize this to the fullest. So a normal house, a normal residence in a house would be, here's a small house for this resident, but inside the house there's a door, and when you walk through that door you enter the Twilight Realm and to the second part of the house. So in the real world footprint there's just this house, but when you enter it it's twice as big. And the residents themselves utilize this way of maneuvering through the corridors, maneuvering through the castle itself, just like this. And then in the beginning, the players will be introduced to this mechanic. And it doesn't work fully well. This dimensional shifting doesn't work fully well because the castle is ruined. So the door might be needing of a repair, or you might need to find the rune which has to be placed above this door in order to open up the dimension and fix the magical field or something. But it will be an obstacle to move through these dimensions. And in the beginning, I want the players to just be able to use that mechanic once in a while and in different rooms and navigating through different areas. But eventually they'll find maybe a magic item or something that will make them be able to move through the different dimensions on demand. So they can just circumvent many different things and jump from one dimension to the other and utilize that as an advantage whenever they come into combat or they come into a conflict, and they can just escape. And that is a very fun mechanic I think would be beneficial for a role-playing game. So that comes back to this entrance, this door. And the first thing I want to do then is just to make it a solid wall. Here's a solid wall that just has a door arch here and says like, welcome to Everhollow or something. It's currently called Everhollow, but yeah, welcome. And it's just brick. And the players can look at this thing and they can see that it's solid brick. You can't penetrate it. It's just not happening. But then the point is that they will meet this solid brick door and they will see, okay, we'll have to enter somehow. We don't know how it's going to happen, but we have to do it. And the point is to utilize room 2 and 3 to serve as a mechanic and as a functioning way of saying, yes, this is how you manage to open up different dimensions, and eventually by flicking some levers or punching some stones or something, this dimension door here will open so you can just pass through the wall. And that's what I'm going to utilize room 2 and 3 for. And this is how far I've gotten. This is currently what I've been thinking. So let's go back to room 2. So room 2 will be this Zwinger part here. It's a German word. So I want this Zwinger to be room 2. Now, okay, let's look at room 2. Room 1 was a guardian and was specifically made so that I could focus on skill rolls and supply mechanics. Wanted to introduce this zombie to show that this is the kind of enemies you might find in the dungeon. So that's the guardian. So room 2 will be puzzles and role playing. And my first thoughts is that maybe, let's just say Swinger here. Let's say that the dimensional door is unstable, so that the dimensional door switch isn't here. It's not in. It's moving around. It's moving around in this Swinger part. That's very interesting. So that the players will walk through here, and then suddenly they will pass through into a different dimension, and they'll just, whoa, what happened here? And then how do they escape? They walk back again, and then so on. So the dimensional door is unstable. How does it work? I would say, first of all, it's let's just here. So the dimensional door. How does it work? I would say it works. It will be what can I see? See-through. It's not the correct word, but you can see the other side. It's not that it's sort of a wall or just a shimmering veil, and then you enter the other side. It's open, and then you can see straight through it and into the other dimension. I think that's an important part, because then the players will be able to anticipate what's coming for them whenever they walk in. So it's see-through, and yeah, it requires a focus. So what I'm thinking here is that, let's say that these pocket dimensions, these energies to open up the different dimensions, they're small energies. And that in order to open up a big door, a big entrance, you need to focus all of that energy into one specific spot. And so when it's unstable, the focus is off, and the smaller, I would say, portal energies are scattered. So going back to the swinger, but it's hard to say. Here, I would say that, let's say that there's like these different portals just scattered around the area that are, yeah, just around here, and that you you can walk around here and just bypass them all, but then you'll just end up by the wall. But then if you move into this space, you will see that it's open maybe. And that you have to navigate. Okay, that you have to sort of move into one portal, exit into one, and then move through the different portals and so on in order to get here. Okay. I have an idea. Let's say that you have the swinger. Okay, so you have this swinger here. This is room 2. So you can walk straight here, and you will find that this door here is locked, or it's just a wall. And that in order to pass through it, yeah, okay. Here's the big thing. So let me create this here. Okay, so the idea is that this door here is locked. So this is the real world. And this is the Twilight. And the whole castle isn't in the Twilight. It's not a mirror, it's not a replica. It's a completely different dimension. And so those who designed this castle, they designed it so that there's specific areas. They didn't want to build a second castle. They just built whatever they needed in the Twilight world, and so that it functions as a portal or has a specific function to extend the real world. So what happens here, because this Twilight area isn't a real world. You don't have animals, you don't have you can't grow crops, there's no rain or weather, so it's, you can't live here. You can live here, like construct things here and utilize this space, but you can't live there. So they create this real world castle, and then they just use this dimension as a tool. And with that said, that means that this Zwinger part here, this whole construction here that is this thing, doesn't have to be in the Twilight world. They don't have to build a second castle. So what they've done is just create a tower, which is just an entrance tower. It's just very high up, perfectly aligned with this door here. And so whenever the dimension is open, you open up this dimension, you walk through this entrance, and then it's just a small tower. And so when you exit the other way, you exit through the portal, or you exit through the other side of this wall. And so when the players come and see this wall, they'll see, oh, it's just a wall, what do we do? But then there's these scattered dimensions or holes in the dimension that are just scattered around here. And if you walk over here and like peek through it, you'll end up somewhere in the air here, and you'll see, well, we can't utilize it. It's just like a 10-foot drop or something tall, so we can't actually use this space for anything, but we can see that it exists, and that if we move these portals around, we can eventually find this tower in some way. I'll figure out how to do that. But then I'll use this as a puzzle. So first of all, they'll have to figure out that this is the entrance, this is the way in, but they have to move these things around in order to get them there and align them. And then I'll probably use these two towers here as this alignment center, that there's a stone here that has to be moved in some way in order to get the alignments perfectly and so on. I'll make this part of room 2. And I'll actually make maybe something here as room 3. Not sure yet, but oh yeah. Okay, I got a good idea. Let's say you align these things. You have to figure out that you have to align some mechanism inside each of these to create focal points so that you can focus all of these portal energies into this space. And if you do it incorrectly, you will open up a second space over here, which will unleash poisonous gas or lava or something. It doesn't really matter, but it will remove some. It will unleash a trap on the players if they do it wrong. That's probably a fun idea. Okay, so let's figure these things out. Let's say I want it to be a dial, maybe. Okay, I'm not quite sure what I drew here, but it's a dial thing, I guess. So the idea is you have a magical rock, or I don't know, and then you have these dials around here with different runes on them, maybe, that has some magical properties. Not quite sure yet, but that the players can interact with this to move it around. And let's say that one of these dials are broken. Yeah, let's say that one of these, this one is going to be in both of these towers here. There's a dial. And by moving these things around, the players will see that when they first encounter this, I'll say this one first, that this one will be intact, and they'll encounter this and they can spin it around. And as they spin it around, they will see that these portals are moving around to different locations. And that just gives them the clue that, okay, well, you have to move them around. And through maybe a skill roll, or just, yeah, I'll give it a skill roll. Let's say moving these will shift the portals, and skill roll to figure out what the correct location is. But I'll also use it so that failure means loss of time. Let's say they spend an in-game hour getting through this gatehouse, then spending 1 hour maybe just to move around here, and then if they figure out this dial thing, then okay, that they'll figure it out. It doesn't matter. They don't spend much time on it. But if they fail that roll, it doesn't mean that, oh, you're screwed, you don't know what the setting is supposed to be. It just means you spend a lot of time figuring out what the setting is, and you spend 2 hours on it, which just, it's a loss of time. I'll actually get back to it, because I have a fun time mechanic in here that I want to introduce later on, so it will make sense then. Figuring that out will actually lead yes. Oh, okay. Here you have the correct setting and the correct setting. It's slightly different. You have the correct setting, which is whenever both of these towers are aligned properly. So when this dial here and the dial here are correctly set up, then that is the correct setting. But the correct setting in quotation mark is when this one is correctly set, but this one isn't. And when this one is set, it will send over this or move the portal to this fake location here, which will be, so this is the trap and this is the entrance. So it will move the portals over to here. Okay, so whenever you say, the players will walk over here, see all of these scattered portals and figure, oh shit, what would we do? And then they look into the portal and see there's nothing here, or we have to investigate. When they come over here, they will see, oh, this gate is locked. It's just a brick wall. And whenever they look through the portals, they will see, oh yes, but the entrance is in the other dimension. And you will also see, oh yeah, there's a second entrance here. Maybe that's also a different entrance. And then when they see this dial and try to figure out what it does, and see that the portals move when you move around the dial, and you figure out the correct setting, or the correct setting, The portal will align over here, which will open up the gate into the trap. And if the players walk in here, yes, they will be trapped in some way. I don't know what the trap is. That will probably be next episode. But they will end up with this trap. Now, the solution to room 2 is then to walk over here to this tower, find this dial which has been knocked over or is broken in some way, and they have to set this dial back into place, move it into correct position, and then this portal here moves from here and over to here. And that is the solution to the problem. Yes. That is room 2, guys. I think. I mean, it's a very scattered thing. I'm actually thinking that maybe after all of this mess here, I'll sit down and create a specific, very organized version of this, in how the different mechanics work here. But I'm getting somewhere, at least. I don't know if people are hanging on to this, but this is mostly for myself. So yeah, see you around next time for part 4.